Praise the Lord, everyone. Good to see you in Sunday school today. I'm ready to have church, aren't you? Looking forward to what the Lord's got for us today. This is called Palm Sunday, and this is in reference to when Jesus came into Jerusalem, and the people was a big multitude there, and they heard Jesus was coming to town. He rode in on a little donkey, and they grabbed limbs off the palm trees, laid them ahead of him, and cried, "Hosanna, blessed is the King." This is the week before crucifixion, and then if you turn over into John, John also sees a number. He says that no man could number of all nations, kindreds, and people and tongues. They stood before the throne, before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hands. And they were crying unto the Lord, salvation to our God, which sitteth upon the throne. Well, he came, didn't he? He died for all of us, and then he rose again. Good Friday is always a kind of a sad day to me because of the crucifixion time, and I know it was a necessary thing, but the Lord went through a lot of abuse just before Easter. But we know the end of the story. Sunday's coming. So we can't be too sad. Sunday's coming. Well, it's good to see you all today in Sunday school. Looking forward to a great day in the Lord today. No telling what we'll see before the Lord's done with us today. I know we've got a baptism in the regular service today. I'm looking forward to that. It's always good to see someone get baptized. Come to know the Lord. It's always good. So we're looking forward to that this morning. It's going to be a great time. Let's go ahead and stand today. We've had a lot of changes just during a 1 week's period from last Sunday to this Sunday. As you know, the little Andrews girl passed away, just a little over around 2 years old, maybe 2.5 years old. So let's remember that family. Also, Brother Bertram, and many of you may not have known his name, but you knew him by him coming to church in a wheelchair, sat right over there when he came, and just not been just a Sunday or two since he was here in church with us. He passed away this past week, and so we want to pray for the Bertram family. Keep the Bertram family in our prayers as they deal with this loss. When the funeral is over, it's not over. A lot of the people will go on about their way and about their business and doing their daily things, and never will think about it anymore. But to those that lost loved ones, that's a lingering thing that they'll have to deal with for months and months and even years. So let's pray for the Bertram family, the Andrews family. Brother Ricky Butler starts chemo, I think, on Monday of this week. So let's pray for him that the Lord will just help him through this. I would like to say the Lord heal him. I think we'll probably have special prayer for him this morning. So let's remember Brother Ricky Butler. Remember Sister Wilbanks in our prayers. Hopefully she is doing something better. So let's continue to hold her up in our prayers. Sister Wilbanks, Sister Cutshaw, Brother Cutshaw, remember them in our prayers. Brother Bray that came with us for years and years until his health got bad. Don't forget our elderly people just because they're not able to come, because they put their time in so you could be here. They did. They put their time in. They put their money in so we could enjoy this today. So let's don't forget those that's paved the way ahead of us and before us and made this all possible. Do we have any more prayer requests you'd like to mention this morning? No, Sister Connie. Keith Wilkins. A lot of you will know him through Martha's Menu down at the restaurant that was downtown for several years. We ate there just about every Sunday. A lot of Sundays we ate there. And Keith was the man behind the counter and part of that family, and let's remember him. His health has deteriorated on him a lot. He's not doing well, had some rough days. So let's remember Keith Wilkins in our prayers. Someone else, Sister Gail? Go ahead, I'm sorry. Okay, Zach, was that right? Remember Zach? Let's remember that prayer request. Anyone else? Sure. Okay, let's remember the Settlemyers family. Yeah, we know them very well. Been familiar with them, worshiped with them for years and years down through the years. So let's remember them in our prayers. Anyone else? Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Brother Rogers, you lead us this morning, please. You may be seated. I enjoyed Brother Nathan last Sunday, Nathan Bertram, as he gave us what he had, and it was a great. Come on, ushers, and get our Sunday school offering. If you have anything, while I talk here for a second. Enjoyed him last Sunday and the words he had to say, and he apologized after it's over because he wasn't very long. I said, "Look, I've seen a lot of good speeches and a lot of good sermons ruined because they didn't know when to shut up." It was very good up until they just kept going and going and going, and repeating and going over till they actually didn't have anything to say, but they just wouldn't quit. Well, Brother Nathan, I thought his was just perfect last Sunday. I have dwelt on a lot of things that he talked about all during this week. I thought it was a very good lesson, and we've got a smart gentleman going to talk to us today. Brother Joey Gilmore is going to come and bring us our lesson today, and I'm looking forward to this. He's always got something interesting and something that he thinks about that's on a look. Come on, Brother Joey, something a little different viewpoint than I've had before, and I've always enjoyed his teaching. Brother Joey is one of my closest friends. We've been through a lot together, hunted together, and cooked together, and fished together, and we've worshiped together. We've just about done it all, and I've known his family from my youth all the way up, and they've been a part of our family. So let's give Brother Joey a great big hand this morning.
Thank you, Brother Keith. Well, before I get started, Sister Hudson had a little eye surgery this week, and she wanted to tell everybody she was doing fine. They found a little hole in her eye, and they called it a wrinkle or a hole, and had to go do something, but she's doing fine. She wanted to tell everybody that she's recovering well, so keep her in your prayers as well. When they asked me to teach, I'm not a teacher at all. I got the gift of gab. I can talk, but I'm not a teacher. But I got thinking about teaching. Everybody's got something to say. It's a viewpoint, actually. It's the way you look at something, the way you study something out, and anything that you got to say can help somebody if it's not anybody but yourself. So that's kind of the way this is this morning. When I start thinking about a subject to teach on, everybody teaches a little different. My style, of course, is a lot different from Brother Rogers and Brother Keith, anybody else that teaches, Brother Levi. But, everybody does their part if you're asked to. So I'm going to try my best this morning to bring a point across that maybe will help somebody. If nothing else, it'll help me. And so y'all just pray for me this morning that y'all get something out of this, and I don't go too long to where it gets boring. If I start getting boring, y'all start waving at me, and I'll quit. If I start repeating myself and trying to stretch it out. But I was thinking on the thought, this happens to a lot of us. A lot of times we give up on stuff. This is going to be parallel with our carnal life and our spiritual life. Through my whole lesson, we're going to flip-flop back and forth. So don't think I'm praising too much of our carnal walk, things we accomplish here on earth, because I'm going to get over to our spiritual side. So y'all just bear with me as I go through some points and tell you about some things that'll hopefully encourage us. If you notice, a lot of times in life, anytime someone is a failure or they start giving up in life, they'll start giving up on the spiritual side as well. You'll see their church life affected the same as their walk here on earth. I was thinking about one of the first things that came to mind a few years ago. My neighbor built a new house across the road, and one of them was a seasoned carpenter. The other one had did carpenter quite a while, but he wasn't quite as seasoned. It's a pretty good sized house, and it's got a real funny looking roof, got a lot of different cuts on it. And they got to the roof, and I came home one day, and they had about half the rafters up, and the next day they were all tucked back down. And about 3 or 4 days went by, and they had some more put up in a different direction. In 3 or 4 days, they took them back down. This went on 3 or 4 times. I'm sure they wasted a lot of lumber and a lot of money. It's expensive it was. But they finally had to go get someone else that was a seasoned carpenter to come in and help them, and they eventually got the roof on. It's a real pretty house now, but they never gave up. At that point, if they had, of course, the house never would have got finished. And another something that hit me, I've got a friend right now that's in the hospital, not doing real well. And a few years ago, he and his wife came to church out here, his wife at that time. And she got the Holy Ghost. She got in church, and he tried really hard. I think he did. But he just never could seem to grasp it. He just could not. He just wouldn't go through. He just couldn't get it all together. And one night, we'd had a pretty good service, and he went out front. And myself, and I think Brother Keith and Brother Larry, I think, went out there with us. A couple of us went out there and was talking to him. So look, what is it? You know, he said, I can't get it. I don't get it. He said, first of all, he said, I can't remember all the sins I did. He said, I can't ask for forgiveness. I can't remember them. We said, well, you don't have to remember each one of them. You'll never do that. You just ask for forgiveness and go forward. He never grasped it. They went on and got divorced, and I don't know if he ever got right or not, but now he's in a real bad situation. So I hope he got things right. It looks like he gave up, but we can never give up on our walk here on earth or our spiritual life. Now, giving up, I'm not a big boxer fan, but we know giving up a lot of times, they call it throwing in the towel. If y'all ever watch boxing, I meant to bring a white towel this morning, I forgot it. The phrase comes from boxing, in which a fighter indicates surrendering by throwing in the towel to the ring, giving up, or admitting he cannot succeed. He is defeated. You know, one of the reasons why we need to have our spiritual life in order, this hit me too after I read this. You never know when. Now, can't anybody rob you of your salvation, but yourself. But someone can take your life. So that's why it's good to be ready. Someone else can actually throw the towel in for you. Someone can come in here this morning, Lord, hope never happens, and shoot half of us and kill us. We have no control. It happens every day. It seems like in Memphis, at a gas station or a store, somebody's life gets took away from them, and they didn't throw in the towel, but their life left here, so hopefully they were ready to go. That's why you can't give up on your salvation, because you never know when somebody else may throw your towel in. It says over 50,000 people in 2023 committed suicide after giving up. That's just amazing. We got people that's every day begging to live longer. They're trying every kind of medicine they can, hoping for a miracle. And people take their lives. And a lot of times these people have nothing wrong with them. They're perfectly healthy, but yes, they kill themselves. I can't grasp that. Brother Fraser used to always say something to this effect: if he ever comes up shot, get the best detective in the world, because somebody has done killed him. You remember he used to say that? It says, of all the denominations, the Presbyterians has the largest number of loss of membership of all denominations. That's kind of staggering. Over a third of the pastors have given up in the last few years. Now see, just because you're a pastor or a preacher or a teacher don't mean that you get discouraged. Everybody at some point in time can give up. That's why you need to stay prayed up. It says over 40 million Americans have stopped attending church in the last 25 years. Now, I didn't look the statistics up for how many have started going, but that's a lot of people that has given up on church. There is, I could have several of you stand up this morning and testify, and I can look out over the crowd and I can see a lot of testimonies that these people would give their testimony of how they kept going. They didn't give up today. You'd be amazed. I'm going to just say the number 10, and somebody here knows what that is. I saw that. You know, we got to keep going on. We can't give up. You know, you may get down and out, and you may get to the point you want to, but never give up on this walk of life or your salvation. I'm going to go over a few people here that a lot of you going to recognize. Some of you don't. People that didn't give up, who made it successful so far as the walk in life. Number one was Albert Einstein. We all remember him. He was one of the greatest thinkers of all times. They say he didn't speak until he was 4 years old or read until he was 7. His teachers labeled him as slow and mentally handicapped. His father considered him as a failure, but later on he won the Nobel Prize for physics. He's one of the ones that came up with going out into outer space, all the orbit and stuff. You know, it doesn't matter how people label you, you still got a way to be successful. all of us are different. We're not all cut out of the same mold. One that'll come a little bit closer that you probably remember is Bill Gates. He has a net worth of close to $80 billion and is known as the famous father of the modern personal computer software, such as Microsoft, DOS, Windows, Excel, and PowerPoint. However, at the age of 17 years old, his first software company failed. Just think if he hadn't kept on pursuing, going and trying again. Now, I'm talking about right now on the carnal side. I'm talking about making money, but we're going to go somewhere with this. Charlie Chaplin, some of you old movie buffs remember him. He was one of the greatest comedians minds of all times. However, he grew up in sheer poverty in the UK. His father abandoned his mother when he was just about 2 years old. He was forced to live in a workhouse at the age of 7. When he was 9, his mother was permanently committed to an insane asylum. Throughout his adult life, he failed numerous times, yet he became one of the most famous comics ever. He starred in 93 movies and directed 72 of his own movies himself. You know, your family, you may look around sometimes and think the way you're raised. I mean, his mother being in an insane asylum. A lot of times, all of us don't come from perfect backgrounds. Our families, you may be the only one in your family that ever succeeds, but that's no reason for us to give up, to be a failure. And some of you that has kids and grandkids will pick up on this Dr. Seuss. And all I remember is Cat in the Hat or Hat in the Cat or something. That's about all I remember about him. He was one of the best children's authors of all times, was also one of the most famous failures. He failed and dropped out of college, never finishing it. His first book was rejected 28 times, but he never gave up. By 1991, at the time of his death, he had sold over 600 million copies of his books in 20 different languages. I figure he got at least maybe $1 a piece of those books. So that would put him 600 million to the good. So never give up. Never quit. This next example, we all played a part in coming to church this morning. Henry Ford. He was the father of the automobile industry. His first company went out of business, went bankrupt. His second company also went south. With a dispute with his partners, he was forced to leave with only the rights to his name. But he went on to become one of the greatest American automakers ever. In the mid-1920s, his worth was around $1.2 billion. One of his famous quotes was, "Failure is simply the opportunity to begin again, this time more intelligently." Now, these guys never give up. No telling how much time he put in trying to invent a car. You think about all the moving parts to get away from the horse and carriage and buggies. This next one is one up to the more modern days. Oprah Winfrey. She grew up in poverty, born to a single mother living on welfare. She was mentally, physically, and sexually abused during her childhood. She ran away at 13 years old and was with child at 14. Unfortunately, the child died shortly after birth. She was fired from her first job as a television reporter because they said she was not fit for TV. Now she's one of the most famous TV hosts there is, and also, by the way, she's a billionaire. Never giving up. People telling you that you're not fit to do anything besides what your goal is. They say you can't even do what you're dreaming about. This next one, I can't even pronounce his first name. I'm just going to call him Mr. Honda. He was the founder of Honda Motor Company in 1937. He founded a company in an attempt to create piston rings for the Toyotas and went on to come up with a Honda dealership. Having to pawn his wife's wedding ring to stay afloat, his first factory was bombed in World War II. The second factory was destroyed a short time after that in an earthquake, but he never gave up. Now Honda is one of the leading motorcycle industry out there besides trucks, cars, tillers, water pumps, generators, motorboat motors. Mr. Honda, he came from a very, very low end to become one of the most famous makers in the world. Back on the movie side, everybody remembers Sylvester Stallone. And first thing, one of his movies comes to mind. It's one of those that just gets you all pumped up to never give up. His young life was incredibly tough. At one point, he was homeless for 3 weeks, living in New Jersey's Port Authority's bus station. He was so broke while writing the script for Rocky, his electricity was turned off. He was forced to sell his dog for $25 to get his lights turned back on. He went on to make $2.5 million for that first movie, Rocky, after selling his dog for $25. He never gave up. Turned down by talent scouts over 1,500 times. His net worth today is $400 million. And just think, if he'd gave up those 1,500 times, he'd be probably worth nothing today. The one we can look overhead this morning and think of is Thomas Edison, most famous inventor of all times. He had 1,093 patents. He was told he was too stupid to learn anything by his teachers in school. He invented over 1,000 light bulbs before the first one burned. He was quoted, "I have not failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that don't work." Never given up. Thank goodness he didn't give up on our light bulbs, because we might not have lights as we see them today. Walt Disney, now here he goes back to some of you that has kids. He was fired by a newspaper editor because he lacked imagination and no good ideals. Walt Disney. He holds the record for the most Academy Awards earned in nominations by individual today. You think about all his ideals and things he's accomplished, for someone to tell him he had no ideals, to let him go. And the last one on this list is one I had to bring in one with food. Brother Keith mentioned this the other day. Colonel Sanders, the late founder of KFC restaurants. He failed in everything he tried for years. At the age of 65, he came up with his famous chicken recipe with only a $105 Social Security check to his name. 1,009 restaurants rejected him before one accepted his offer. Today, there's over 25,000 KFCs in 147 countries. I'm glad he didn't give up on that recipe for steaming and pressure cooking his chicken with all these seasoning he has, because I love Kentucky Fried Chicken. Psalms 55:22 says, "Cast your burden upon the Lord, and he shall sustain you. He shall never suffer the righteous to be moved." You know, our failures get our attention. A lot of times when we fail, it kind of humbles us. They cause us to just reevaluate our spiritual maturity, and God often uses failures so we experience to humble us. He reminds us of our limitations, makes us more willing to depend on him and submit to his commandments, and remain open to his leading in our lives. So a lot of times, if you think you had a failure, maybe it's not actually a failure. Maybe it's just a trial you're going through to build your faith so you'll try again. Just never give up. Try again, whether it be on your walk in life or it be your spiritual life. Never give up. Keep trying to your last breath. 2 Corinthians 12:9, "And he said unto me, My grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness." Through our weakness, we gain strength. You know, a lot of times, I've never really wanted to just, you might say, throw in the towel. A lot of times I've got close to wanting to give up on something, and I'd go in the house, maybe something I was working on. I like to work on stuff. And then I'd go in the house for a minute, and I'd say, it's not going to get me down. I go back, scratch my head, and I find it. It's just so simple a lot of times, or you just get away from it for a minute and go back, and then the answer's right there. You just can't give up. We're going to look at a few of the Bible characters now that never gave up, that went through a lot of stuff just like you and I do in our life now. Job is one that always comes to your mind. We all know everything that happened to Job's life. He lost everything he had. He lost his family. He lost his health. He lost his wealth. Despite his suffering, Job remained steadfast in his faith and refused to give up hope. I couldn't imagine losing everything I've got. Not that I have a whole lot accomplished here on earth, but the Lord has blessed us. But losing everything, losing all your family, and just your health, everything. It's hard to imagine that, but it happened to Job, but yet he stuck with it. David, he was always one of my favorite characters in the Bible. He was the anointed king of Israel. He battled against his enemies such as Goliath, the bear, the lion. The other night when Brother Levi was teaching Wednesday night, everything he preached on was real close to this lesson. I thought, it's right on target. And I didn't even know what he was going to preach, and he sure didn't know what I was teaching. He talked about David. Saul's jealousy and personal failures such as adultery with Bathsheba, he never gave up. he still fulfilled God's plan for his life. He turned to God for strength and guidance, which helped him overcome his adversaries. I don't think any of us has been through as much as David has. You may have had a lot here on this walk on earth, but David had a lot of failures. He did a lot of things I'm sure he wasn't proud of, just like you and I have. But he never gave up. He kept enduring to the end. Joseph is another Bible character. He was sold by his brothers into slavery and taken to Egypt. Could you imagine selling your brothers or sisters, actually selling them for money? This just blows my mind, even back in the Bible days. I could never, there's a lot of times we didn't get along. I remember one time I busted a guitar over one of them's head. But you know, we never sold each other. We fought like cats and dogs sometimes, but we loved each other. He never lost hope or faith in God. His journey was far from easy. He faced many obstacles along the way, including false accusations and imprisonment. After interpreting the dream of Pharaoh, though, if you remember, he became second in command. You know, he just kept going. He never gave up. He did the right thing. Even when he was in prison, he did his best to go on to become second in command. And, you know, his faith not giving up on God, it paid off. You know, he eventually was able to feed his family and feed a lot of other people because of his knowledge and putting things together and holding on and never giving up. Daniel, we always, as a kid, always loved this story in our Sunday school rooms. Despised facing persecution, the lion's den, and imprisonment for his beliefs. He refused to renounce his faith. Quitting was not an option. I hope it never comes to the point that here in the United States, here at Gospel Tabernacle, that we're in prison for not giving up and not telling of our beliefs, giving up on our beliefs, and, you know, and saying we don't believe in God. I hope that we have enough that we can go through that if it ever happens, but I pray it never happens here in the United States right here, especially for us. Noah never gave up on building the ark, gathering up animals and waiting on the rain to start. I can imagine how much he was humiliated, but people laughing at him for building this big old boat on the dry land, talking about rain and flood, stuff they didn't even know what it was actually, going out and gathering all these animals up, having to listen to people day after day laugh at him. You know, people laugh at us a lot of times for things we do and we believe, but we should never give up on it. Never give up on our belief. If God tells you something, tells you to do something, regardless of how crazy it may seem, if it was God and he give you a word, we need to stick with it and do it. We go on to a lady named Ruth. She was a widow who lost her husband and was left without her mother-in-law, left with her mother-in-law. Her loyalty and devotion to her mother-in-law led her on a journey that would test her strength. She worked hard to provide for herself and Naomi, gleaming in the fields until she caught the eyes of Boaz, a wealthy landowner. Through his kindness and generosity, Ruth found favor with him and eventually became his wife. She was out, if you can imagine, hungry enough and broke enough to go out in the field. Nowadays, we would think going behind a combine and seeing a few soybeans out on the ground, gleaming the field, picking up these leftover stuff that maybe the corn picker wouldn't get today, just to eat. And then she went on by doing and not giving up and doing the right thing to becoming the wife of the person that owned the fields. And then she had plenty of food, no doubt. She never gave up on providing for herself and her mother-in-law. Jonah, this was always a fun story too. We all know that the Lord told him to go to Nineveh, but he fled to Tarshish. You know, he didn't listen to what the Lord told him to do. The Lord caused that wind to come up on the sea. It was real rough, and they casted lots and decided it was Jonah the reason the storm was raging like it was, and so they threw him overboard. Of course, we know how the Lord, he created a fish mouth big enough to swallow him up, and he was in the belly of what we think of as a whale for 3 days. He prayed to get out of the belly, and of course the fish spit him out on dry land, and he decided then it was time to go to Nineveh and preach like the Lord told him to. Well, going there and preaching, they repented of what they was doing, and the Lord repented of what he said he was going to do to the people. And in doing so, for some reason, it made Jonah mad, the very thing that he wanted to do. And in Jonah 4:3, it says, "Therefore now, O Lord, take, I beseech thee, my life from me, for it's better for me to die than to live. I can't imagine somebody giving up on God enough to ask him to, you might say, kill him. Whatever you do, if you ever do give up, don't get to this point. Luckily, the Lord didn't do it right then. But we got to keep going forward and never ask the Lord to take your life. That, to me, that's just committing suicide. He's really lucky the Lord didn't do it at that particular time. Then the woman with the issue of blood in Luke 8:43, and a woman having the issue of blood 12 years, which had spent all of her living upon physicians, neither could be healed of any, came behind him and touched the border of his garment, and immediately her issue of blood was, I call it, stopped then. Spent all the money you got, 12 years, all you've done is try to get your healing. You have waited, and you waited. Luckily, she never gave up. How many people reckon the very day they give up on praying for a miracle, that was the day the Lord was going to give it to them? Well, you'll never know, but she just kept on, and she knew if she could just touch his garment. You know, if we can just touch the very garment of the Lord. The main thing is, never give up, don't quit praying. Prayer is the key to all of our success in life. In Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ which strengthens me. We know if we can just stick with him, we can do all things. Proverbs 3:5-6, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, and always submit to him, and he will make your path straight. As long as we never give up, he's going to make our path straight. Just keep hanging on. James 1:2-4, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking in anything. Psalms 37:23, the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delighteth in his way. Through his fall he shall not be utterly cast down, for the Lord upholdeth him with his hand. Just keep getting back up. The Lord's holding on to us. We'll just keep getting back up and try again. Just don't give up. It says in Proverbs 24:16, for a just man falleth 7 times and rises up again, but the wicked shall fall into mischief. You know, any time that you fall away, whether it be in your carnal walk or in your spiritual walk, that's when you get into wickedness. When you fall away from listening to the Lord and get away from and let him take care of us. Let's look at a few ways, a few signs of things that maybe you are failing or feel like you're falling away, either it be in your spiritual walk or your carnal walk. Number one, you failed to meet your expectations. We have all failed at some time or another to not reach the expectation that we give to ourselves, but we can't quit. We got to keep on going. You have no hope left. How many times you ever felt like that you were hopeless? You stopped dreaming. Now, if you stop dreaming for yourself, nobody else is going to dream for you. If you don't have a dream set and something you're going to try to accomplish, there's nothing going to come your way probably. You feel that you can't control your life. You ever felt that way? I'm sure all of us have. You've lost excitement for yourself. You got to keep encouraging yourself and not lose the excitement in your life. You don't take care of yourself. How many times we see people that start falling the wayside, and you start seeing it in the way they dress, the way they comb their hair or not comb it, whether they clean up or don't clean up. You constantly feel miserable. We've all felt miserable for a season, but you got to climb back out of it. You don't laugh as much as you used to, or they don't. Laughter is a cure for me. I like to have fun. I like, being a Christian, you can have fun and laugh and being a Christian. You feel like you burn out. Well, this happens a lot of time in our jobs. We all get burnt out. You get burnt out sometimes in church, but you can't quit. You can't get discouraged. You feel like you're worthless. You ever felt worthless? You're socially withdrawn. You start getting away from things that you used to be a part of. You're negative about everything. I don't like negative people. A lot of times I get negative, but I try not to, but you just get negative about everything. We see people like this, especially you that's got employees under you. Now here's some tips to overcome failure. Accept your feelings and your emotions. If it comes your way, say, hey, I'm not the only person it's ever happened to, probably not going to be the last. I've got to accept this. I've got to find the best out of it and go forward. Failure does not mean your life is going to be over. Failure is not the end as long as you're still breathing. Find something good in it and go forward. Learn from failure and be constructive with it. Find out what is good about your failure. What can it do to help you? Find inspiration. Start reading your Bible more, going to church more, talking to people about your situation. Get inspired about it. Just don't give up. Never give up just because something bad comes your way. Surround yourself with positive people. This goes back to this last one over here, which was talking about negative people with negative. If people around you are all negative, get away from some of those people and find some people that's got positive attitude. You know, everybody wants to be uplifted. You know, don't just stay in a monogon all the time. Avoid isolating yourself away. Don't get off by yourself. Now, sometimes I realize we want to get off by ourselves and have a pity party. I mean, that's normal. Everybody's life, you kind of do that. But don't just always go off by yourself and try to do everything on your own, because you'll probably fail if you do. Romans 12:12, rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, continue instant in prayer. There once again was talking about prayer. Prayer does answer a lot of things in our life. When your prayer life goes away, you're probably going to see a lot of other things go away. Never give up on praying. James 1:12, blessed is the man that endureth temptation, for when he is tired, he shall receive the crown of life. When he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Lord has promised to them that love him. We have a crown of life waiting for us if we'll just endure and never give up. Keep going forward in our Christian life. Isaiah 43:2, when thou passest through the waters, I will be with thee, and through the rivers, they shall not overflow thee. When thou walkest through the fire, thou shalt not be burned, neither shall the flame kindle upon thee. Fire and water is two of our most strongest things we have here on earth. And he's saying right here that you can get through it. He'll be there for us. Joshua 1:9. Have not I commanded thee, be strong and of good courage, be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed, for the Lord thy God is with thee whithersoever thou goest. He's with us through the valley, on top of the hills, wherever we go through. You may not realize it. Through the deaths in our families, he's always there with us. Through the discouragement, through the failures, God is always still there with us. Galatians 6:9, and let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. We're going to reap whether we do well or not. You're going to reap something, but hopefully we're striving to reap the good things in life. 1 Corinthians 10:13, there has no temptation taken you but such as is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that you are able, but will be with the temptation also make a way to escape, that you may be able to bear it. Now, this scripture right here a lot of times gets quoted a little bit wrong. People think the Lord will not put more on us than we can bear. They think it's in the Bible. It is to a certain degree. This is a scripture they're quoting. It's not exactly like a lot of times we say it, but that is what it's talking about right there. He won't put more on us than we can bear. Hebrews 12:1-2, we are urged to run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer, the perfecter of faith. As we keep our eyes on Jesus, we won't fail. We may here on earth stumble a lot of times, but in the end, we're going to make it if we just keep our eyes on the prize. Perseverance means it refers to the ability to remain steadfast and committed to one's faith despite facing various challenges or obstacles along the way. You know, I was thinking about these people that do commit suicide, and God forbid that I ever know anybody. Well, I have known some people that has, but hopefully none of my Christian friends will ever get to the point where they think they failed and go back and commit suicide. But you know, if you look it up, I looked up some spiritual suicide. It didn't give the definition I wanted. I think that we can commit spiritual suicide just like people commit suicide here on earth with their physical bodies. You know, you got your salvation and you just give up on God and you get out of church and you go back out in the world, you're committing spiritual suicide. But you caused it for yourself. It's never was meant to be that way. God never intended for us to commit suicide for our bodies here on earth either, but sure not our spiritual side. But oftentimes, people just give up and walk out. And you know, we see the signs a lot of times of people around us that commit suicide. You see a lot of these things I talked about. But we also see signs a lot of times in church with people that we go to church with that's about to commit spiritual suicide. And how many times do we just look over these signs and don't really go and try to help them? I'm guilty of it. Somebody quit coming to church, they'll miss a Sunday or two, maybe 3, and somebody say, "Hey, did you notice those so-and-so wasn't there?" "Yeah, I think I did. I didn't realize it. Yeah, he wasn't there." A week or two ago by and say, "You ever heard him?" "I didn't hear anything from him." "Well, did you check on him? Did he check on him?" You know, maybe they're reaching out, and there's nothing wrong with people going to different churches, don't get me wrong, but I'm talking about people that's just dropping out, getting discouraged, and just quitting altogether. These people, we need to help each other and watch out for these people that's about to commit spiritual suicide and help them along the way. At least call and let them tell us, say, "Hey, I decided I want to go somewhere else." "Well, that's good. I hope that you get what you need there. I encourage you. You know, if you have something going on, call me and we'll try to come and we'll do the same here." You know, but just for them to get out and nobody ever check on them, you know, are we actually helping them? I think it's up to us sometimes that we fail there, that we need to step up and do this. And you know, everybody, I know I'm not a teacher by a long shot, don't claim to be, but you know, we have people that are preachers, but for the preacher, you also have to have teachers. And then for the teachers, you got to have somebody to teach too. Everybody has got a place. You got to have a congregation or a Sunday school class to teach to, or a teacher's no good. We all have a place, something we can do and help people to you know, fulfill the journey here on earth. It's just like in the working field, maybe in a restaurant. You know, you got people that wait on you, then you got the people that cook the food, then you got the people that wash the dishes, and you go and you eat the food. But it takes everybody. It takes all of us in this walk of life to make it. And I'll hope that somewhere I'll find my place to fit in and do and keep striving. And I think we should never give up on trying to find something more to do in our walk in life. You know, someone said one time, if you're standing still, you're actually going backwards. You can never stand still. You got to either forward or backwards. So maybe if we keep praying about it and keep seeking the Lord, we'll find our way in what we're supposed to be doing in this walk of life. But the main thing of my goal this morning was to bring a point to us, to never give up here in our walk. Keep trying to succeed here in your Carmel. Keep trying to do better. The Lord don't care for us having things as long as it hadn't got us. He would like for all of us to be millionaires as long as the money don't have us. But at the same time, continue to walk with the Lord and increase your walk in your Christian life, and never give up, because you give up on one, you're probably going to end up giving up on the other one. But y'all just continue to pray for a church. Pray for me. If I can ever help you any way, I'll be glad to do what I can. And pray for our teachers. If you never taught before, it takes me a long time to get a lesson up, because like I say, I'm not the smartest person in the world for sure, but it takes a while. But if you get asked to do something, it don't matter if it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes. If you're asked to, do your best and try it. You never know. Everybody touches somebody, so just do what you can. Well, that's about all I got. I'm going to turn it back over to Brother Keith. I hope I hadn't bored you too much, but thank y'all for listening, and if I can help you, let me know.
That was right down my alley. Not giving up, not quitting. That's been my slogan all my life. I just ain't gonna quit. You know, you can't whoop a guy that won't quit fighting.